Steve and Jill here.
Hello.
Welcome to the Land Academy Show, entertaining land investment talk. I'm Stephen Jack Butella.
And I'm Jill DeWitt, broadcasting from sunny Southern California.
Today, Jill and I talk about how rules are made for the lowest common denominator. Not the people who listen to this show. Not the people who host this show. The lowest common denominator. I'll explain.
I have something funny to say, by the way. Remember, I was thinking about, we always say we're from Southern California. Now people can see us, right? But they're like, yeah, right. We don't see it. There's a black studio. You're in a studio. There's nothing behind you that we see.
We're in a closet.
We don't even believe that you're really there.
Closet.
Really? Are you really there? And it's funny because I thought, well, you remember like a year and a half ago? I think it was a year and a half ago that we started to go out and do these on location, thinking that would be a good idea. Oh, that was such a pain.
Very bad idea.
It was hard to do.
Well, it wasn't even. I'd do it every day if that's what people wanted, but nobody liked it.
I don't remember.
Nobody saw the value in it. I got all kinds of stuff like, can you guys just please go back to, because I listened to this in the car and I don't care.
I thought the quality.
I really don't care about your life.
I thought the quality was not the best. So
the quality
maybe
was
once
great.
in a while. But I mean, there's always background noise. There's always people walking by, that kind of thing. So maybe, what I'd like to do, like maybe we could do it once in a while on location though, because I would like to show everybody we really are here.
In case you
There's
can't
palm
tell,
trees right
this
there.
Is a novice hobby of mine.
Novice. Keyword being novice.
Audio video thing, like watch me change the cameras here. I have to do it
novice.
myself. Like most people have, people in the studio and they have, more than one person doing everything.
Okay.
So
Thank
Jill's
you.
right.
Thank you.
Enjoy the inside of Jill's closet.
Thanks.
Just joking. Before we get into it, let's take a question posted by one of our members on the landinvestors.com online community. It's free.
Maria asks, hi, all you land flippers. I'm new to the group and excited to be here. I was talking with my accountant about setting up an LLC, and he said something I hadn't heard of before. Wondered if y'all were familiar with it. He said the LLC has to be established in the state where you'll be buying the land to protect you legally. He said taxes will be owed on profits in states where the property is located, no matter where the LLC is based. Is that consistent with your understanding experience? Thank you.
Thank you, Maria, for your question. I've made a part-time career since we started Land Academy not answering this. And here's why. Because I have an accounting background. Not a tax background, but an accounting background. And there are a million ways to interpret this. But I'm going to give you a scenario just for fun. The technical answer here is I don't know. It sounds to me like I'd get at least another second opinion, maybe a third opinion.
I have
but I want you to follow me on this. Let's say theoretically you have an LLC that's in Arizona, and it's all legit, and you've got bank accounts in the name of the LLC, and you're happily going along buying and selling property in Arizona, and you get a call from a guy who's got a bunch of property in Arizona, and he's 95 years old, and he has property in 48 states, and he says, you know what? I'm so old, and I'm so done. I'm going to give you all this property for $10,000, but because it's actually like a paperwork nightmare. The closing in all these 48 states, there's lots of counties, but when we're all done, you will have property in 48 states for $10,000, and then you guys have to absorb all the deeds and the closing costs, which is a lot more complicated than it actually sounds. So do you think the following year that person would file 48 state tax returns? Is that possible or plausible? And let's just talk about the money for a second. Not the money to file the tax returns, because that's crazy. The money, your actual operating percentage, what would it be? It would be insanely low. So I can get into this in a great, in a lot of detail. I have a number 2 point. Have you ever had something done in your house, and a contractor comes and he says, and it gets done? Like, let's say, I don't know, you knock out a wall in the kitchen, and the contractor's all done, and he says, I noticed while I was knocking this wall down that you've got aluminum wiring in this house, and it's supposed to be copper. I'm going to give you a great deal. I'm going to say, I'll change out all your copper wiring for X. And he never leaves. He finds something else, and he changes it out. Accountants are very driven, like any business person, to upsell. So,
I wasn't going to say it that way.
Am I right? Am I wrong? I don't know. Is any accountant ever right or wrong? I don't know. But you can drive yourself nuts with this LLC tax thing. Concentrate on making money.
Here's my thoughts. I hate to say he's wrong, but I question it. And you know why? Because there are so many different rules out there. Which one supersedes the other? Let me give you an example. We don't ship things. I happen to know, being in a business, an online business, where you do have customers all over the country and all over the world, where you provide a service, like a software service and things like that, and you're not physically shipping anything, you have a whole different set of rules.
That's for California, yeah.
So, but there's other federal things that take over too. So, like I said, I don't want to say he's wrong, but I do want to say that I don't want to.
We don't know if he's wrong. He might be totally right.
So, I wouldn't buy into that. I don't believe this all to be true. So, and I hate to say it, but I do believe that. I don't want to pick on professions, but there are certain professions out there that's how they make their money. This is true, by getting you to do all this extra work and keeping you on retainer for years and years and years, because that's how they make their business.
Fun fact, quickly: if you buy property in Canada, you get charged all the tax during the transaction, right out of escrow. How cool is that? And you're just done with it.
I mean, I know so many people. I know so many other investors. Let's put it this way: in the general investor community, does every investor have an LLC in every single state that they buy property in? Think about that one for a second.
If you have to file a state tax return, here's my question for your accountant. Do you have to file, is there sales tax? Some people believe that there's sales tax on real estate. I personally don't believe that, but it could be construed like that. Do you have to have a business license in the state where you're transacting business then, if you're going to file a state tax return?
Right.
It goes on forever.
It really does.
How about capital gains?
Well, here, let me give you an example. I have another example.
If you do one or two deals a year and you have a full-time job, it's probably construed as capital gains, not ordinary income. Maybe you should file for capital gains at whatever it is, 28% too.
Right.
In fact, you should file for, this is what this show's about. Rules are made for the lowest common denominator. So if you want to stick to the absolute book, the tax book, and just make sure that you pay everything,
play it safe.
You will be out of business, I guarantee it.
That's true. If you want to play it safe, you should have a business license in every one of those states. You should file for taxes in every one of those states. You should have an LLC in every one of those states.
Keep going.
You should probably have a state-specific accountant in every one of those states.
Keep going, Jill. You're absolutely right.
Let's see what else. You probably should have a driver's license. You should probably have a registered address in every one of those states. So I'm going to keep going. You may involve getting an apartment in every one of those states. I mean, come on. Having an office and an address and everything in every one of those states. What else do you want me to do?
Let's say, for sake of argument, you throw it all to the wind, throw a caution to the wind. You don't pay attention to the rules at all. Again, this is kind of on topic for this. And somebody, for whatever reason, calls the IRS or calls the state government. By the way, with the exception of California, this is just my opinion. States don't run around chasing money. They just don't. The feds do. And believe me, you want to follow the rules of the feds. So, let's just say you can throw a caution to the wind, and you file a tax return, but you don't keep good records and the whole thing, and it catches up with you 5 years later, and the IRS does an audit, and they say, I'm sorry, Steve, but you owe $82,000. Is that the end of the world? Or do you just say, you know what, you're right, I do owe $82,000. I probably should have kept better records. Thanks very much. How would you like me to pay? Oh, you'd like me to pay $10,000 a month? Okay. Or $5,000 a month, or whatever works out for you, because you're in business. And here's the key. My whole point to this is that if you know how to buy and sell land, because that's why we're here. We're not here for the LLC point.
Right.
If you know how to buy and sell land and generate pretty positive margins consistently, then just bring it. Bring it.
Well,
Go
here's
ahead.
my thing. Can I end on this one? Because we got to get to the topic.
Yeah.
My last thing, Maria, is this is how we run our business. we don't run around trying to be rule breakers. I really am trying to do the
That's
right
right.
thing. And my bottom line is, I don't trust everything that one person tells me. I do my own homework.
Yeah.
And I hate to say it, I often find them wrong. I can,
Yeah.
for every one person that tells me one, I can say 3 people that argue it. And then
Yeah.
it's up to me to say, okay, what do I think is really the right thing here? And then I make the decision. And then, and like Stephen says, if any time I was wrong, you know what? I took this person's into consideration. I took these 3 people's stuff in consideration. I made the decision. So if you, whoever you are now, government entity telling me I'm wrong, I will do the right thing. I got it. I apologize. I wasn't trying to be a rule breaker. And that,
That's right.
I think, is all you need to do. And then
That's
you're
right.
just going to be fine. Please don't trust this one person and run out and only and move to another state because that's where you think you need to be. I don't want you to do that. Thank you.
Today's topic, rules are made for the lowest common denominator. This is the meat of the show. What do I mean by that? Somebody, somewhere, screwed something up real bad, and somebody had to make a rule so the rest of the people didn't mess it up. That's why there's speed limits, because it was getting abused. That's why there's, every rule out there. Our industry specifically is loaded with anti-fraud rules from the 50s and 60s because people went out in the middle of the desert when there were no rules at all and bought 1,000 acres for $12 and cut it up into 1,000 acre properties, really with reckless disregard, and then proceeded to mail out people back east who were freezing, sell property to them on terms, and they would sell the same piece of property 15 times, banking on the fact that it wouldn't get paid off. That's fraudulent,
Right.
We don't ever do stuff like that, and it's given this industry quite a bad name. In fact, if you talk to somebody older, much older than us, they'll tell you all kinds of stories about how they bought a swampland in Florida and things like that. So now, because of that, it's so heavily regulated that it's not that heavily regulated compared to most industries, but by and large, everybody's doing it right, and it's fine. But you just need to be conscious when you're in this business of the fact that these rules are made for people who just are, for lack of a better description, psychotic about how they run their businesses.
I think it's interesting to point out that for every law that's passed, they don't take off or undo the old laws. So let me just bring this up because it partially tries to Maria's thing. What if the CPA or whoever she's talking to went to college and has done because this is out there, he's been doing his same business the same way for 40 years. That's all he knows, everything.
Yeah.
But you know what? And in the last, 6 months, there's been 8 new laws that were introduced to change the way things have been done, because this is reality. But they don't go back and take those old ones off.
It's case law.
They just trust that that this is the new and improved, and this is now the way we do it.
Right.
But he still says, but this one's still on the books. Guess what? He's right. It is still on the books, but so is this one on the books.
Right.
So like you just said, I'm trying to think of it like I'm looking out the window at people like in parking and speed, and I'm trying to think of an example of that. But you can't drive down the street and see signs that don't contradict each other. I guess that's where I'm going, and that's where this is. It's like no parking here, but you can have 15 minutes here. Well, wait a minute, which one's right? It's the same thing. So all of these rules and things that they introduce, because it meant no parking except for the street sweeper, and now we added an extra sign because you just said like the lowest common denominator, they don't get it, so we got to add an extra sign. So now everybody's confused, and we're all correct.
If you talk to a legislator or a politician, politicians are almost always lawyers, and if you talk to them philosophically about this topic, laws and rules, here's what they'll tell you. Well, yeah, that's my job. My job is to make laws and rules because you can't govern yourself. If we let everybody govern themselves and make their own decisions, then it would be just mayhem and anarchy. So I'm here to save y'all, which cracks me up.
Right.
Because no, they're not. I've never met a lawyer, by the way, who actually can count money. They're just money and numbers and spreadsheets are not their thing. They don't. It confuses them.
Right.
They want stories, case law stories, and they truly had this altruistic thing, like they're going to save us all.
I think I would have made
Their
it
job
good.
is to protect the lowest common denominator.
Right.
The the person who can't protect themselves. So just bear that in mind when you start to open a book about how to subdivide real estate, or a great example with the question today of how and why to file taxes and the implications of what goes on.
You know what this topic means to me? It's like if you spend your whole life and your whole career going overboard to be 100% by the book, it doesn't make you a better person, by the way. Everything's just going to bog you down. I hate to say it. It's like, you know what? It's like saying, like, what if you did well you did well on a test and you realize your professor accidentally, read something's wrong. Are you really going to raise your hand and go, excuse me, I actually deserve a B? You know what I mean? Could you imagine?
That's a good example.
Actually it was a C. I kind of looked, my first 10, you must have been drinking when you were grading papers or something, but these first answers I realized were wrong because I looked at my friends. Because stuff like that happens. Do you run to them and say, whatever? Or how about speeding is a good example. Nobody would speed. Everybody speeds.
Speeding
is a perfect example. Do we all drive 35 and a 35? No, but we should. And if you're the one that does, by the way, you're in the way right now because nobody does. You're actually the hazard.
Here's the more mail you send out, this will happen to you at some point. Lots of members contact me on this. It happens to us still all the time. You send out a bunch of offers. Some of them get signed, and some of them don't. Some you get a little bit of hate mail back, like, "Oh my gosh, I had $100,000, and I'd be happy to sell it to you." And once in a while, you get a call from the Attorney General because you get reported. This is the truth, which I just laugh about because we're not breaking any rules. In fact, I talked to somebody from the California Attorney General's office about 3 years ago, and they said, "Yep, somebody called in again on you, Steve," and we all had a chuckle about it. And I said, "Look, I'm absolutely all for being in compliance." And what he said was, "You're never going to hear from me again. Please just fill out this thing that I'm going to send you, and let us know you're not a criminal." And that's it.
Okay.
So that in and of itself is enough to discourage some people from never ever sending out letters again.
It's true, and that's okay.
So the rules aren't made for you, and they're not made for us.
Right.
They're made for somebody who just doesn't have the stomach for it, or the intelligence for it, or the endurance for it.
I think
I have 50 examples like that.
You can still be a good person. I don't want anyone to think that we're advocating, just do what you run them, do your thing, keep it under the radar. But
let me close on this. The final point is everything in this business, and probably every business, is complaint driven. Keep your customers happy. Make sure you're giving them a fair shake. Don't missell land. You never want to sell. Give the impression that your land is something that it's not. Ever. Exactly. And you never want to charge a lot. Okay, right. That's part of it. Part of this is that everybody's getting such a good deal on this real estate. We're passing through the savings. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
that makes it easy.
Yeah. This is just do the right thing.
Thanks.
But don't hyper focus on LLC stuff. Well, you've done it again. You spent another 15 minutes or so listening to the Land Academy show. Join us next time where we talk about managing your work burnout.
And we answer your questions posted on our free online community found at landinvestors.com.
You are not alone in your real estate ambition.
You know what, these shows, I thought these were going to be fluffy shows, and it turns out these are long shows. We have a lot to say.
I know.
It's like, let me go. I have so much to share. Share the fun by subscribing on iTunes or wherever you're listening, or if you're on YouTube where you're watching. And please subscribe, and while you're at it, rate us there. We are Steve and Jill.
Information
and inspiration
to buy undervalued property.